exciting scientific findings of the past half century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others.
Well, what the hell? It's JLL, that Gnostic teacher on the internet. I'm back again. It's January 9th, 2018, and I'm here with your final instructions for participation in the Charlotte Working. To begin, I have an announcement about the timing of the event regarding the central act of courting, the ritual of courting. As you'd know by now, if you're following the recent uploads, the Charlotte Working is a killing spell with a particular composition. The ritual courting to be performed is simply the trigger of the spell, but all the other components are equally important. One of those is the support of my 16-strong team of Kalikas. The other one is, of course, your participation out there in the ground force. Now, I have an announcement to make about the timing of the trigger event. I'm pushing it up from Tuesday until Sunday. I had previously said that you need to coordinate yourselves to 15 hours universal time on Tuesday, the 16th of January. I'm now bringing forward the date until the 14th. So that ritual will be performed at 15 hours on Sunday, the 14th, at the location of Charlotte's Ridge, at an undisclosed location somewhere in the mountains of Western Europe. Now, bear in mind that the timing of tantric magic is always a critical factor, but there's always a certain amount of play in the timing. So I'll give you the technical picture here. For this particular spell, I noted an extraordinary configuration of omens over 3 days. There is a 3-day period each month that is called the lunar increment. I believe that I had said perhaps the lunar interval. The correct term is the lunar increment. And this is a period of 72 hours, a window of 72 hours. I believe I might have said 17 hours when I referred to this in an earlier talk. This month, January 2018, the lunar increment extends from about 6 hours universal time on the 14th, Sunday, until 3 days later, 15th, 16th, 17th, until around 6 a.m. on the 17th. There's a 3-day or 72-hour period. So in reviewing the omens and signs that are favorable to the casting of the spell, I decided to undertake that ritual 3 days earlier. That places it at a moment at the very beginning of the lunar increment of 72 hours. Very beginning, rather than before. On the 16th, it would have been at the conclusion of the lunar increment. See that difference? Now, you don't have to bother yourself a lot about these details. You might find them entertaining, certainly at a later moment in life. If you continue to practice Gaian Tantric magic, such details will become more significant to you. One of the pleasures of this form of magic to which I will give a name in a moment, is the precision of it. Not precise in an anal retentive manner, not precise in an obsessive compulsive manner, but precise for the pleasure of precision. And the factor of the lunar increment is a good example of this precision. Now, it's one thing if I say to you, hey, come and join Planetary Tantra. Look at what we do. We practice interactive magic with the Earth. And if you enjoy this, and if you give it your serious attention, like anything else you might undertake, from riding elephants to playing the ukulele, well, you'll get to be able to do it well. And when you get to be able to do it really well, then you'll be able to actually know what the Earth is doing at any particular moment of the day or month or year. You will be able to detect and track the force field of the planet in the most amazing ways. So let me give you an example of something that only a practitioner of planetary tantra would know. Indigenous traditions call the Aeonic Mother Spider Woman. You know that Spider Woman oversees the Charlotte working. You've already had that illusion playing in your minds for some time now. Charlotte is the name of the spider in the child's book, Charlotte's Web. You and I are creatures who live in Charlotte's Web. We live in the web of the great planetary mother, who has been compared to many different animals. You can compare her to a snake, a lion, you can compare her to a wolf, or a spider. So it's no big leap of imagination to realize that life is a web, the web of life, and everything belongs to that web. You remember the saying, when you damage the web of life, you damage yourself, and vice versa. When you damage yourself, you damage the web of life. We are all woven into the web of life. The word tantra means tapestry or weaving. Okay, so there's a web of life out there, and the planetary spider woman, called Spandarmat, in the beautiful language of the Persian Avestan mysteries, Spandarmat, well, she's constantly weaving her web. She's weaving it right now. And if you're in the web and can feel the web, then you can feel that there are different actions that happen in the tension of the web. And I mean in the entirety of the web. Okay, let's call it the bioelectric magnetic aura of the Earth, the BEMA. It's vast. It surrounds the entire planet. You are a tiny, tiny, tiny cell in that weave. And yet, you, as a tiny cell, can feel what happens in the entirety of the weave if you follow this practice. That being so, you would know that there is a time every month when Spider Woman tightens the web. Now, if you go and you look at the way spiders work, you'll see that they work in a kind of geometrical fashion. Go watch a spider weaving a web. Watch the many clips of it on YouTube. So the spider exudes from its body a liquid which turns into a thread. That thread, by the way, happens to be as strong as steel cable. It is equivalent in strength to the steel cables that uphold the Golden Gate Bridge. And Spider Woman weaves her web in a geometrical pattern, usually. But there is a moment when she stops. And she pulls on the web in such a way to tighten up all the threads in the web. Now, I don't know if you can actually detect this in the action of some spiders that have been filmed. Perhaps you can. But I can assure you that that is exactly what the Ionic Mother does with her web. And there is a period of 72 hours each month when her activity focuses on tightening the entire web of life woven around the planet. And you can know when that time is, and you can observe that time, and then you can observe what she's doing and use the force of what she does at that moment for whatever it is that you may be doing. The key word that describes this event of tightening is tensegrity. Some of you may have heard that word. I believe it was my old buddy Carlos Castaneda who introduced the word tensegrity during the last decade of his life. Tensegrity, however, is an architectural term as well, and it refers to the tension and the integrity, tensegrity, of an architectural structure. So a bridge, in order to be a safe bridge and a lasting bridge, has to have the proper tensegrity. It has to have tension, and it has to have integral functioning of all of its parts. Likewise with the web of life. So once a month, Spider Woman, the great planetary Spider Woman, pulls on the web. And during those 72 hours, there is heightened tensegrity. You get my drift? So the Charlotte working is timed for the lunar increment with the heightened tensegrity operating across the entire planet through the entire web of life. And the ritual takes advantage of that heightened tensegrity. What you are invited to do in this little adventure is to practice, perhaps for some of you, the first instance of practice, first exercise, or training exercise, you could say, in interactive magic with the earth. That's a definition that I gave to Planetary Tantra in 2008. And at that time, I was talking to someone who could stand to listen to me, and trying to communicate my manic excitement about having received the terma of Gaia awakening. And I stated that there was a new form of sorcery and magic available in the world. And I said, yes, it's planetary tantra, and I also like to call it the sorcery of love and intention. That's a sweet phrase, and I'm still rather fond of that phrase. But I have yet another parallel term for this magic. And this is the first time I've ever said this to anyone publicly. So this is kind of an historic moment in the annals of planetary tantra. And so I declare that the practice you now undertake can be called autogenic magic. Now, if you go to a search engine and put in autogenic magic, nothing will come up because it's not on the web and it's not defined. Nothing came up for me in a couple of attempts with a couple of search engines. What does come up is autogenic training. And you'll find that this is quite a well-known and popular technique of therapy today. It's a relaxation technique. It used to be called biofeedback. Typically, this technique involves using certain medical machines, monitors, a monitor of pulse rate, monitor of blood pressure, possibly of electric tension on the skin, and so forth. So the patient or participant in a biofeedback therapy is hooked up to one of these machines, and they interact with the machine, and in doing so, they prove that they're able to change and alter their own bodily functions for the better. So one of the most common uses is to help people to relax, and for instance, to lower blood pressure. So most likely you've heard about biofeedback at one time or another, but you might not have heard the term autogenic, which is now current. That was the original term applied to this kind of therapy by the individual who discovered and developed it. Now, in order to know who that was, well, once again, we gotta go back to you know who. Those evil Germans. Yes. Specifically to Johannes Heinrich Schultz. Any relation to Charles Schultz of the Peanuts comic strip? I don't know. Could be. He lived from 1884 to 1970. And he was a German psychiatrist and psychotherapist known for his rather renegade and pioneering approach. And he was the pioneer in the development of techniques of self-hypnosis and autosuggestion, which were originally called autogenic therapies, then became biofeedback. Now again, they are called autogenic therapies. So the characteristic of an autogenic therapy is that you're in a biofeedback loop. The characteristic of autogenic magic is that you are in a biofeedback loop with the planet, with the source of your life. If you picture someone in a typical autogenic training session, learning to relax, they will be reclining in a chair, they will perhaps have on earphones, they will have something attached to their arm to measure the pulse and the blood pressure. And then across the room from them, attached to them by wires and cords, is the biofeedback machine. You are constantly in the presence of the most massive biofeedback machine imaginable. That's the earth, and you are wired to that machine by the threads of life, by the filaments in the great living web of Spider-Woman. Autogenic magic teaches you how to use this biofeedback loop, this coupling of power between your body and the physical body of the planet. That coupling, that vital bonding between you and the source of your life is the foundation of planetary Tantra. And it is the basis for all practices of Gaian Tantric magic. Now, there are many ways to practice GTM. There are many facets and exercises in the field of planetary Tantra, but you don't need to know about any of those right now. You may know about some of them. You may be inclined to go and investigate them later on. Certainly you will, if you stick with what has been proposed here through my series of talks. Okay? But for right now, don't go and research. Don't go and look on metahistory.org, for instance, for the section on planetary Tantra. You don't need to delve into that content now. You just need to listen to the concise and specific set of instructions that I'm giving in this talk. Now, As you listen to my words closely and carefully, I do want you to go to the description and click on the link to the Charlotte working. That brings you to a page on metahistory.org, and the first thing that you see is a spider's web covered in drops of dew. That's the signal image for the Charlotte working. I want you to take a moment, maybe pause the audio, and just look over this page. I'm composing one single continuous page. The only page you need to refer to for the Charlotte working. There's a lot about the Shakti Cluster and planetary Tantra on metahistory.org. You don't have to go there, but you do have to listen to what I'm saying now. So if you scroll down, you see that the first image is intended to resemble a handheld device, like a smartphone or an iPhone. And on the surface or screen of that handheld device, you see a design. You may have seen this design before if you followed my work. Perhaps you're seeing it for the first time. I don't know, because I don't know who you are out there in the audience. But I can tell you that whether or not you've seen it before, or whether you've seen it for the first time, this is the first time you've ever seen it for real. This is the first time you've ever seen it in full realization of what you're looking at. I say that because in the 9 years plus since I received this design in the terma of Gaia Awakening, I have never disclosed its operations in the way that I am doing right here, right now, in this talk. So go to that link in the description, open that page, and keep it open and look at it while you continue to listen. Now, to coordinate and align your mind and intention with my mind and intention, I'm going to read from the page that you're looking at. So you're going to see the written words, and you're going to hear me read those words, starting with the sentence, "You must engage the Shakti Cluster visually to activate autogenic magic." The JPEG of the Shakti Cluster provided here can be reproduced on A4 size paper or even poster size and used for the Autogenic tool. Or it may be reduced to the size of an iPhone for handheld use. If you opt for the handheld version, as illustrated above, you may want to have it laminated or pasted on a firm backing so that it can be mobile. Following the strike, more instructions will be provided regarding what is to be printed on the reverse side of the device. Ideally, you will have a laminated, handheld tool convenient to take with you wherever you go. Now I ask you to scroll the screen and bring your attention to the second image. Below is the complete Shakti Cluster design with numbered nodes. Note the color scheme. 1 to 10, black spots. 11 to 15, dark red spots. 16, a blue spot. 17, a white spot or open circle. And 18, an ochre or earth-colored spot. Note also how the spots 1 and 17 float in the leading notch of the oval, and 18 sits at the pinch of the design. The 5-pointed or 5-petal design within the oval is called the floret. So there you see illustrated a version of the Shakti Cluster showing all 18 nodes. You scan the nodes on the vertical axis, above to below, and count them as you scan. 17, 1, 18, 16, 13, 9. For the Charlotte working, you use only 2 of these nodes or apps. 16, which is blue, and 1, which is black. Now, I'll continue to read, coming to the key instruction. In the handheld version, you see the nodes depicted as squares within the overall rectangular border, resembling a smartphone with a touch screen full of icons that activate apps. App 16 is the telepathic nexus for coordinating your intention with others around the world who attend to the same ritual event at the same moment, the ground force. App 1 is the Kali kill point that acts as a sighting device by which you direct your intent straight to the TI. So there you see, before your eyes, the tool provided in Planetary Tantra for autogenic magic. Now I want to be absolutely clear to you. Do not be mistaken. Your body, your psychosomatic instrument, is already a biofeedback device wired into the telluric matrix of the planet. However, due to the anomaly in the divine experiment, which is fully described in the sacred narrative of the fall of the wisdom goddess, and due to the excruciatingly difficult conditions of psychological warfare that pertain at the end of Kali Yuga, the Rome needs an additional device to activate the magic that is innate to the Anthropine species. When I say you are the magical child of the wisdom goddess, I'm not just spouting some kind of fancy poetical phrase that crossed my mind. I'm describing exactly what you are as a species. You are, as Rome, designed with magical powers. When you look at the world today and you see what's coming out of Hollywood, when you see the TV series and the films about superpowers or about children who have extraordinary occult abilities, etc., etc., you know what I'm talking about. When you see, for instance, a horrible piece of banal, vulgar, ridiculous Hollywood schlock, such as Jumanji 2. It's Jumanji 2. There was an original Jumanji, I think, in 1997. Now you have Jumanji 2 presenting to you a Hollywood version of magical children operating in the alternative reality of a video game. All of that is Xenosh delusion. All of that is Xenosh illusion. All of that is the product of the demented imagination of the Xenosh, who want to present a false, phony, banal, shallow, vulgar, and fraudulent version of magic to the world. Lies about magic and witchcraft rolled across the child's bright brow. This has been going on for a long time. That which terrifies the enemies of life, the Xenosh, and all of the psychopaths who serve in their cause, that which terrifies them the most is that magic which is innate to you as a child of the wisdom goddess. And the time has come to claim that magic. Due to the extraordinary conditions of the assault upon the Rome and Sophia herself, a particular device has been provided for you to own, learn, claim, and master your autogenic powers, and to become Überkinder, Wunderkinder, to become the wonder children of your true mother. Shakti Cluster is a design unlike any other design in the world. You will never find anything like it. There has never been anything like it before, and there is nothing like it to follow. I guarantee you that. Now you can contemplate this design, and I advise that you do, every single day of your life. I'm going to provide a number of variations of the Shakti Cluster in the immediate future. You can print them out on A4 size paper, typing paper. You can print them out on photo paper, anything you like. Put them on the wall. Keep them in your house. Print out a reduced version, laminate it, and keep it with you at all times. The Shakti Cluster is the biofeedback device to amplify your innate magical powers so that you can meet the challenges of Kali Yuga. Now, in the text provided on the page for the Charlotte Working, I've indicated some of the elementary properties of the Shakti Cluster. Naturally, you're going to be curious about this structure. It's an oval, it's an ellipse, it is not a circle. You're going to wonder about the numbers and the arrangement of these numbers in the categories that I indicate. The design features of the Shakti Cluster are simple and elegant. There are 10 spots in black, 5 in dark red, 1 in blue, 1 in white, and 1 in ochre, or the earth color. And the arrangement of these points, these nodes on the design, is intriguing. There is so much here that you do not know. There is so much here that you can come to learn. And learning with the Shakti Cluster is a thrilling experience. If you're not thrilled, then you're not learning how it works. But for right now, but for this moment, but for this month of January 2018, there are only 2 features of the Shakti Cluster that you need to use to engage in the Charlotte Working. One of them is point 16. You see where that is? It's on the vertical axis, and it's in the lower part of the floret, which is outlined in gold. 16 within the design, and 1, which is in the notch at the top of the design. You see that 17, which is also part of the design, floats. Think of it as a mercury bead floating on a mirror. Node 17 of the Shakti Cluster belongs to the integral structure of the design, but it floats in a particular way. Point 1, node 1, app 1, is in the notch, and then below that, at the pinch within the structure of the Shakti Cluster design. is point 18. The time to learn about all of these points, what they signify, and how to use them, is in the future. Don't go looking for anything now on metahistory. There's not time for that. I have intentionally waited until the last days before the execution of the courting ritual of the Charlotte working to bring you this device. And what I've done now, as of my announcement at the beginning of this talk, I've even shortened the time. You have 4 days to hold this device in your hand and learn how to use it. 4 days and 4 only. Why didn't I introduce it a month ago, 2 months ago? Part of the tantric training technique is the use of immediacy and urgency in the learning process. You learn immediately, current, with an event that requires your attention. This is how Tantra works. Immediacy is a specific and unique feature of Kala Tantra. Kala in Sanskrit has various meanings, but one of them is this instant. It's what happens in this instant. And your capacity to demonstrate Kala Tantra, planetary Tantra, depends on the pleasure you bring to the moment that you demonstrate it. You see? You like me. You really like me. You like it. You really like the process. Right now, you like it. Kala is right now. I have intentionally made the time short. You can spend the rest of your life playing with the Shakti Cluster, as many, many people around the world are already doing. But right now, I want you to do this. And I want you to do it exactly as I describe. Return to the page linked in the description and look at the design of the Shakti Cluster, where you can read the numbers. You don't yet know where these numbers are located, so look at the design that shows you. And look at number 16. That's the blue spot. It's on the vertical axis. When you look at that spot, when you let your eyes fall on that spot, you might imagine that you push a button. Now, of course, I don't propose that you take the end of your finger and push that spot, numbered 16, on the design of the Shakti Cluster. No, that's what you would do if the Shakti Cluster were an archontic device. If you were looking at the display of a smartphone that you hold in your hand and you wanted to activate app 16, what would you do? You would tap app 16 with your finger and you would open the application and then you would use the application. With the Shakti Cluster, you do not touch the screen. You do not touch the design. That would be ridiculous. If you stood there in front of a piece of paper, touching the points of the Shakti Cluster with your finger, well, you would certainly be demented, wouldn't you? It's not an archontic device that works by touchscreen technology. It is something far, far superior to an archontic device. The Shakti Cluster, which is the primary biofeedback or autogenic tool for Gaian Tantra, works by proprioception. You ever heard that word before? You know, it's as if you had never heard the word breathing before. as if you had never heard the word blinking, as if you had never heard about blinking your eyes. Imagine that. If somebody told you that you blink your eyes, and they gave you a description of blinking your eyes, and there you are, you've been going through your entire life blinking your eyes, and you never knew you were. Proprioception is one element in the foundation of autogenic magic that you're going to practice now, and the other element is recognition. And when those two powers of recognition and proprioception come together, you can perform autogenic magic. That is what you are designed to perform. That is your innate endowment and your birthright as a human animal. Now, what I can tell you today, and perhaps one of the most wonderful things that I could ever say to the world, is that the occult powers you require to perform magic are present and current in your ordinary functions. You claim them out of your ordinary functions. There is no exercise in the world that can lead you to siddhis or occult capacities, such as I am proposing. There is no meditation, there is no mandala, there is no secret technique from any school of occultism, not even from the school of the mysteries, that can lead you to realize your occult powers, because your occult powers are operating all the time in your ordinary perception. The factor of proprioception is the part of your first attention, the component of your first attention by which you detect patterns of movement. You do that all the time and you don't think a thing about it. And what you have never been told is that the capacity that allows you to perceive patterns of movement in your environment is also an occult capacity by which you can perform magic. And it gets better. It gets better. There is a second capacity, which I would call actually the primary natural capacity of magic, that you already possess. You don't have to go out and do anything to acquire it. Do you get me? You already have it. That is the capacity of recognition, which is the recoil of the first attention. When you recognize someone across the street, you're walking down the street, you're going to do your groceries, you're out in the town, you glance across the street and you recognize someone you know. That capacity of recognition is the primary occult power for performing magic. But you've never been told that, have you? You've never been shown how to claim the magic power that you already have. That's what I'm doing now. And I want you to prove that what I say to you is correct and true by using it at the moment that you learn what it is to use. Now return to the image of the Shakti Cluster and focus your eyes and focus your gaze on point 16. This is like the icon, this point, this node, this dot in the Shakti Cluster is like the icon on the touch screen of a smartphone. You touch the icon, you activate the app. You're going to activate 2 apps out of the total ensemble of apps in the Shakti Cluster, which is an autogenic biofeedback device to amplify your innate magical powers. You're going to activate 2 apps. You activate the first app by simply gazing steadily at point 16. By doing so, by simply gazing, you engage proprioception. Proprioception is what allows you to bring your attention, your power of observation, the first attention, to any object in your environment, especially an object that is in motion. You follow an object that is in motion and you detect patterns of motion by proprioception. So bring that same capacity of proprioception to the gaze that you bring to point 16 and hold your gaze on point 16. Then you add the factor of recognition. You recognize at point 16 what you're looking at among all the other points in the Shakti cluster. You're looking at the empath nexus. That is the place where you concentrate in order to put yourself on the same channel with everyone else who is doing the same thing. You see that? It's simple. Everyone else around the world today, from this moment on, who gazes at point 16 in the Shakti cluster, puts himself or herself in alignment with all others who are doing the same. It's the nexus of the empaths or the telepathic switchboard of the Shakti cluster. When you look at that point, just look at it, simply touch it with your gaze. You activate that point and you place yourself in direct communication with everyone else who is doing the same thing at the same moment. Now you will note in the way that I'm describing this process that the interactive device of the Shakti cluster is not activated by touch. It's not a touch screen device. It's a sight screen device. You activate the icons, which in turn get the apps running, simply by bringing your attention to those points visually. So when you gaze at point 16, app 16, on the Shakti cluster, you are aligning your intention with everyone else who is doing the same for the same purpose. So just do that and give yourself a moment to feel what that feels like. Give yourself a moment for what is called, in sorcery technique, gathering intent. You have an intent, but you don't have to exercise that intent entirely by yourself. As a matter of fact, you might be delighted to know that there's millions of people around the world who share the same intent as you, which is namely, don't you want to see those predators and psychopaths dead? Fortunately, if you're listening to this channel, you have the opportunity to align with other people around the planet who wish them dead. And you have the opportunity to do something about it. So hold your gaze on node 16. Call it app 16 if you like. And then recall your intention. Recall the command prompt. C:\\KILL. You have the intention to kill, to terminate the TI. And not only you. Now, gazing upon node 16 in the Shakti cluster, you have the assurance that it's not only your gaze, it's not your gaze alone that is going to that point. Simultaneously, the gaze of others around the world goes to the same point. So enjoy that realization. Just enjoy it, savor it for a moment. How good does that feel? Knowing that you perform this Gaian tantric magic in unison and coordination with others among the Rome. Now you perform an act of proprioception, which is that you move your attention from one object to another. Proprioception is both the capacity to follow a moving object with a steady gaze, really important faculty, wouldn't you agree? And simultaneously, proprioception is the capacity to move your gaze among objects that are not moving. For instance, when you play chess or when you play checkers, or Monopoly for that matter, and your eyes scan over the game board, your eyes move, in a checker game for instance, across the different checkers that are on the squares. They are not moving, but your eye moves across them and detects a pattern. That's proprioception. So now you use your natural capacity for proprioception to move from spot 16 to spot 1. You just raise your eyes, raise them vertically, and focus your gaze softly and steadily on the black spot numbered 1. That is the Kali kill spot. Now if you look at the structure of the Shakti Cluster, you will see that it has a curious notch at the top. It is an oval with an indentation. The indentation has 2 features. One feature is a shallow dip, and then there is a deeper dip. You see that? And at the lower point of the deeper dip is the node numbered 18. That's the pinch. The narrow dip is the pinch of the Shakti Cluster. And the wider dip is the opening notch. The black spot 1 floats in the opening notch. Have you ever looked down the barrel of a rifle? An old-fashioned rifle, like a Winchester repeating rifle. I happen to own one of those. And when you are at the shooting end, when you're holding the rifle and you've got your hand on the trigger, you look down the barrel. And what's down there at the end of the barrel? It's a sight. And what is the shape of the sight? Shape of the sight is like the vesica shape of the narrow pinch of the Shakti Cluster. That is the part of the device for sighting your intent. You focus your intent to kill the TI on that black spot, point 1 of the Shakti Cluster. You concentrate everything that you feel, all the rage, anger, despair. Concentrate the delight that you would feel at achieving the death of the target, the sense of triumph, the sobbing joy of relief. Concentrate all those emotions steadily in one single and ruthless intention to kill, and fix that intention in the gaze that you direct toward node number 1. And that's how you execute the kill using this interactive device. Finally, as the final point of this instruction, there is a high secret of tantric magic to be learned and mastered. When you close your eyes, can you move your eyes to the right and left? Have you ever tried that? First, try it with open eyes. Look forward with open eyes. And now, glance to the left or glance to the right without moving your head. That's easy to do, right? You can do that. Routinely do it when you're driving. This, by the way, is another act, a routine act of proprioception, glancing to the right or left. But have you ever tried to do that with your eyes closed? So do it now. Close your eyes and see if you can glance to the right or to the left. Now you might detect, if you're subtle in your observation, that it's easier for you to glance to the right than it is to the left. There's some detectable difference. You do feel an effort when you shift your eyes to the right or the left when they are closed, don't you? Oh, yes, indeed you do. And the effort is somewhat different. So you could say that for each of us, maybe it's easier to do it to the right or to do it to the left. There's a reason for that. There's something to be revealed as you undertake this magic. But for right now, this is the final action you undertake using the Autogenic tool that I'm providing. Once you have concentrated intensely upon point 1, spot 1, the Kali death spot, with open eyes, close your eyes. Softly and slowly close your eyes. And move your eyes while closed to the right or to the left. And then open them. That is how you release the intention through spot 1. You throw it off to the right or left once you have sighted through that point. So when you open your eyes, you won't see point 1 of the Shakti Cluster directly in front of you anymore. You will see it off to the side, depending on which side, to which side you have thrown your glance. Now, could anything be more simple than that? Yet that's the practice. That's what's required for using this tool for your collaboration in the Charlotte working. So I want to say to you in closing how much I respect the way you are following me in this little adventure. Your responses on my channel are premium. You're getting the target, you're not saying the target, you're playing with the mischief of this sorcery. And the more you enjoy it, the more effective it is. The more pleasure you find in it, the more pleasure you put into it, the more effective it is. That is a characteristic of Gaian Tantric magic. So enjoy and move ahead with me to 15 hours on Sunday, January 14th. And until then, as ever, heed the obvious and hold to correction. There's your best chance for a future worth living.